Hi, Sarah.
Hello, Pam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm hot. I'm sweaty. I'm gross.
Yeah, heat wave
Woo!
season.
It's tough out here.
So today we're gonna be talking about bounce back culture and like comparing ourselves to others. Sarah, if you want to kick us off, get us started.
Yeah,
Um,
I would love to because I feel like this is a huge topic that is kind of an elephant in the room, but
mm-hmm,
everyone knows it's there. You especially if you're pregnant alongside other people, you
mm-hmm,
have this natural inclination to compare yourself even from pregnancy.
mm-hmm,
And then once you have your child, obviously the biggest thing is the postpartum body and bouncing back to what you were pre pregnancy or maybe even before then. You know, something I always thought of is, oh, well, at one point in my life, I weighed this much.
mm-hmm,
So maybe I can get back to that point after having a baby.
mm-hmm.
And then it just evolves. It's just, if it's not your body that you're comparing, it's your child that you're comparing to other children around their age. And then
Mm-hmm.
you see all these things on social media that just compound that comparison culture that we have. So it's just become so prevalent, I feel, and just really debilitating, I think, to the mental health of moms and
Yeah.
in turn children because they've been compared to others since they've been born.
Yep.
Even in utero. Oh, at 20 weeks, sometimes you get the weight of your baby and it's like, oh, yeah, my baby weighs like 1 pound. And then you see on the internet, they're like, oh, my baby weighs like almost 2 pounds. And, it's just this comparison starts in the womb. And it's just at a certain point, it just becomes obsessive, I
Yeah.
think,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it kind of perpetuates this sense of anxiety in everybody in the world. I don't know. What do you think?
It definitely it definitely kicks up the anxiety in you. I definitely experienced that firsthand because my whole pregnancy, a lot of people kept saying to me how small I was and how I didn't look pregnant. Or not that I didn't look pregnant, but that it wasn't as noticeable. And at some point, I think it was like 25 weeks, I was like, uh oh. Because I was scared. You're scared. Like, how is my baby growing? Am I okay? Like, those kinds of things. And I had a placenta apravia, I think it was called, where like the baby was kind of sitting half on the placenta in some capacity. So they noticed that at the anatomy scan. So that was like week 20. So they were like, well, we'll see you again in 8 weeks and we'll see if you're supposed to grow out of it by then. So during 20 and 28 weeks, I ended up telling my job and like I was more public with it with my day to day life. And people just kept saying that. Like they were like, I didn't know. I wasn't sure. You look so small. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is awful. So, social media, the bittersweet, you know, thing that it is, now I'm seeing all these women online and they're like, my baby's in the 90th percentile. And like,
Oh, right, right.
so then postpartum, my kid is born at 37 weeks and a day. He's a little baby.
Itty
And
bitty.
we go, the first couple months, you're going to the doctor, what feels like every 2 seconds.
Uh huh.
And people are like showing their video of how their baby was born this small and now they're 20 pounds at 9 months. And I, even still now, have a growing boy, but he's small compared to other kids.
Yeah.
And it never bothers me until someone says it. Until someone says,
Oh, he's
oh my
so
gosh, he's so much
tiny.
smaller than this kid. And I'm like, guys, come on. So there is a constant anxiety around that.
What
Attacking
even
on,
fuels that? anxiety though? Like, so you know that you go to the doctor and okay, so he's maybe, I'm just making up numbers, maybe he's in the 20th percentile of his height, weight, etc. But you know he's healthy and growing. So when somebody compares him to others his age, do you still feel that sense of anxiety even though you know that he's healthy and happy?
So usually centered around actually having the doctor's appointment. Like we just had his 2 year a couple weeks ago. That doctor's appointment was very reassuring because at that I hadn't gone to the doctor since he was 18 months. So now, I felt better because in that time period he grew 3 inches. He grew 3 inches, relatively the same weight, but he's still on a growth curve. And I was like, well, I'm good. He's on the growth curve. The rest of it doesn't matter. But towards the end of that, before I went to the doctor, and there was so much mention of like how much smaller and how some people's kids they were never that small. They were always just big and chunky and like things like that. I think the anxiety is centered around a couple of things. Number one, you compare yourself as a mom. You start to think like, am I doing the right things? Am I feeding them the right things? And like, should I be feeding them more? Are they hungry? Like, so many different thoughts happen. Number two, the community that you're supposed to find online, everyone online is talking about their 90th percentile child, and it's harmful in that way because there aren't as many of a mention of kids who are not in the 90th percentile. And it's actually very rare for kids to be in the 90th percentile. That's actually not the norm. So I think those two things, they trigger so many different things. They question you as a parent. They question like, am I eating enough? Like what's going on? That like, but it's all centered around a growth chart that is meant to be helpful for children. I think there's a lot of good to it, but those numbers are exasperated when you're around other people and online just as much, because people don't realize like the harmful things. Instead of calling your kid cute or adorable, it's centered around so small, so chunky, and then we wonder why we grow up to be adults with body image issues because it's been happening since birth,
Literally since birth, because the growth chart to begin with is a comparison. Like the growth of your child is literally a comparison to other children.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous, like this fear of the failure to thrive area of the growth chart. It gets so scary when you see your child drop a percentile or a lot of percentages in that growth chart. There was an instance of my child I mentioned had horrible reflux.
Yeah.
And there was a time where I think it was between 3 and 6 months where she had not gained quite a lot of weight. And the doctor wasn't concerned about it, but he was like, oh, like she's, just kind of plateauing here. Normally we'd like to see it grow. I'm not concerned, but this is what we like to see. But if she continues in this trajectory, she'll fall lower to the failure to thrive area. And like just those words, like failure to thrive is like, like how much more of a failure could you feel as a parent, especially me as a breastfeeding mother, and at that point she was only having breast milk, and it's just like, oh my God. That extreme comparison is just so scary when they're that little.
Yeah.
And then it's perpetuated for the rest of their lives in different ways, I mean, even to swing it back to the mothers in general, our bounce back culture, we're supposed to be bouncing back to what exactly? We just had a baby. Like, why do we have to bounce back to our body before we had a baby? Like,
I'm not a ball. Why am I bouncing?
Yeah. Like, my body fundamentally changed to house and grow a baby. Why is there this societal push for women to get back to looking like we've never had children to begin with?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the reason, like where that comes from. And I want to mention this first before moving to that part. The growth chart is important because if there's a dip or something like that, it's something that can be caught where maybe 30, 40 years ago that wasn't the case. So I recognize the importance of it. However, I think it should just stay at the doctor's office. I I think the bedside manner with doctors can be improved upon with wording and how impactful that is, because when you hear a medical professional say failure to thrive, you hear failure. You don't hear anything else. So it is very important to word things correctly. And again, that chart exists for a reason. I think it's important for our children as a whole to be healthy and etc. That being said, it should just stay at the doctor's office. Like, I think it's great that on breast milk, your child is now 3 times their birth weight when they are 6 months. If they were born a 5 pounder and now they're 20 pounds, more power to your breast milk. Your kid gets from you, or your formula. Your kid gets what they need and they grow as genetically as they can. And I think that's wonderful. I don't want to hear it. I have seen a lot of moms kind of feel the same, where it's like, I don't need the extra anxiety because I'm already working in my own brain. Now, as far as the bounce back culture, somewhere between whatever weight loss trend and how a major celebrity was able to lose 65 pounds in the first 6 months because they have whatever resources, there's no, like, I'm not going to say anything bad on however they got it done, but they dropped 65 pounds because they need to get back to work because they're in this role, they're an actress, they're a singer, etc. That's all well and good, but that's not the standard. Most women right now, which I happen to think this is like the best time to be a mom in that regard, because so many women that had babies when we had babies, they're turning around and they're like, it took me 3 years to feel like myself, which is like a breath of fresh air, because when you think about, for whatever reason, that in your brain you're like, I need to be this weight again because that was my pre-pregnancy weight. You see these women and they're like, it took me 3 years to even care. You're like, oh, thank God. You're like, woo. But it's still a major hole. It's the bounce back culture comes from society expecting you to just, essentially, you had a baby on Friday, you should go back to work on Tuesday. And I think society as a whole, I know it varies across the world, but as a whole, society just expects that of women, that they need to just not look like they're pregnant anymore if they're not pregnant. And that's not genetically, biologically, that's not accurate.
And it's not just the look behind it. It's just the society expects mothers to go through this crazy life-changing event.
Yep.
And we're expected to pretend like nothing happened. We're supposed to be emotionally secure. We're supposed to be these rock star moms right out of the gate. We're supposed to, go back to work.
Yeah.
A lot of us way too soon. Way too soon. And we're supposed to be functioning members of society in the same way that we were before we had a child. And that's just not, that's impossible. That is a cruel, cruel thing and standard to put on women who have children, who just have children, who have just given birth. It's cruel, and it's perpetuated by so many things. It's perpetuated by the constant comparison that we are introduced to as soon as we are born, as soon as we're in utero, pretty much.
There's a comparison chart.
Yeah. Like, it's just the way of life, it seems, is constantly comparing ourselves to others. And I just think the expectations are continuing to become more and more difficult to attain, but
Mm-hmm.
it's labeled as status quo for everybody or as the bare minimum. It just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel sustainable to me.
It's definitely not sustainable. And I was having a discussion not related to this, but about women's health recently. And it was centered around how many women I know could lift a certain amount of weight. And let's say the example was 50 pounds, like a 50-pound dumbbell. And it was centered around, I don't know a lot of women that can do that. And I was paying the accolades to this person. And then I stopped and I thought about the women that I know that are mothers. And I started thinking about the different things that they can do that don't involve lifting a 50-pound weight, but more so that like we we are expected to perform in a certain way very quickly in our immediate postpartum time. And now you see the mom who had a baby at the same time as you and she looks great. She is back to her pre-pregnancy weight. And maybe you haven't even gotten your period since you gave birth. And now you're having all these different things are happening. Is there something wrong with my body? What is she doing that I'm not? What is the nature of, oh, well, she has time to go to work out. And like, now you're almost tearing her down because whatever, it makes you feel better. But we've created amongst ourselves, because we can be equally as responsible. We've created this realm where we are judging other moms for that because she went and she lost weight, however she lost it, whether it was through medicine, whatever weight loss enhancement that they used, whether it was them working out, incessantly.
Sometimes it just happens naturally too.
Sometimes
Sometimes,
genetics.
yeah.
Sometimes you were already genetically athletic, because that's the
Your
thing.
metabolism is faster than the average person, whatever it is.
Your metabolism is different than the average woman, let's say. Maybe you carry more testosterone. Like, there's so many different things. And we shouldn't turn our noses to that. It shouldn't be like, oh, well, genetically XYZ. Like, you know what? Good for you. That is your genetics. God bless. And releasing it. Because I've found that women that are genetically in one place don't feel up to par in other places, and so on and so forth. So this is exactly that example where you see a woman who, she was an athlete before she had a baby. So she had a baby and she's still an athlete. She continues to do what she was doing before because of muscle memory and genetics. You can't compare your day one to someone's day 1000. And that goes across the board, but especially after you have a baby. Because for all you know, I put on X amount of pounds and whatever I've had to medically deal with. And then you see me online, let's say 2 years postpartum. I'm like, oh my gosh, she looks great. She doesn't even look like she had a baby. And you have no idea the mental transformation that I've gone through to kind of be in that place. So it is difficult, but I think the lesson that we can take from that is the kinder we are to other moms, and this is like including in our villages and the virtual villages, the kinder we are to one another, the more that becomes the standard over you having to bounce back.
Yeah, and I think kindness, of course, empathy, of course, but I think at the same time we have to acknowledge the fact that sometimes your day one is not someone else's day one. Like you're going to
Mm-hmm.
start your day one postpartum in a way different place than your friend is going to start. Your
Yep.
sister, your whoever is going to start at their day one. Because
Mm-hmm.
everyone is uniquely themselves in their own way. Like our genetic makeup, our village, our circumstances,
Yep.
our everything is different.
Mm-hmm.
We are so unique as individuals, especially when it comes to your body going through trauma, because that's what happens to your body when you
Yep.
have a baby, regardless if you've given birth natural versus C-section, which is another thing that women compare. Oh, you had a
Mm-hmm.
C-section. Oh, you delivered naturally. Oh, that's so much better. Or, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that you had a baby via C-section. Oh, well, maybe I'm not because a C-section saved my life. You know,
Amen. Yep.
you know. So, it, I think we need to acknowledge the perception of other women in when we're making these comparison. Okay, breastfeeding versus formula.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well maybe so and so didn't have a lot of milk ducts genetically, so she physically could not breastfeed.
Mm-hmm.
But she had to feed her baby, right? So how else did you
Yep.
expect her to do it?
Yep.
You know, I think I had a conversation actually, it reminds me, with my cousin recently who is about 6 months postpartum, 5 months postpartum. And I was an over producer, I was over supplier.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people look at me and be like, oh, wow, you were so lucky to be an over producer of milk. Oh my gosh,
Yep.
I wish I could have been an oversupplier,
Mm-hmm.
And my cousin the other day said something to me because she just started work again, and her hormones have started her period again, and her supply is naturally dipping.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking to me, and she was like, "Man, for my next baby, I'm just going to pump like crazy in the beginning and make myself an overproducer and oversupplier. Like that's what I'm going to do next time." And I told her, I was like, "Hey, well, the grass is not always greener."
No.
Being an oversupplier. And
Mm-hmm.
she asked me, "Well, how do you figure?" And I had to list the things that I went through as an oversupplier, like constant mastitis,
Mm-hmm.
always on antibiotics, having to pump and dump because of antibiotics because you can't give that to your freshly newborn baby,
Mm-hmm.
having to spend hours and hours and hours bagging up milk, finding creative ways to store it, buying a
Mm-hmm.
new freezer, having a freezer die and dumping out even more of my milk, being
That's
in
its own episode.
constant, yes, being in constant pain, clogged ducts, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my baby was fed. Absolutely. That was great. But at what cost to me? I was
Yep.
miserable. I was in
Mm-hmm.
pain. I was in agony all the time, mentally, physically, all of it. Exhausted. I had to pump every 2 hours for a year plus
Yeah, that's
just to
right.
just to relieve myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if we approach with questions like how she asked me, well, how is it not a good thing to be an oversupplier, and then be really open to listen and
Mm-hmm.
absorb the experience of the other person, whatever the comparison is. I think that is how we combat the comparison culture, the bounce back culture, all of that.
Yep. Yeah, I think with us being open to receiving the answers when we ask those questions, but just being open to asking them.
Mm-hmm.
I find sometimes that we can very quickly shut down or shut out the other in things. So like the mom that is genetically has a metabolism that's from God, and it just is what it is. She had a baby and she has a six pack by month 3. You know what I mean? Like I think we need to be open to asking the question, and when we ask the question, being open to receiving that answer. And also, like, let's say you see a stranger and they are a year postpartum, and to you they visually look like maybe like what you want to look like. Like, let's be honest, like a lot of the bounce back culture is vanity. You give yourself so much to this child, and you literally expand in such a way, and then you don't shrink in such a way. It feels like you grow faster than you shrink, right?
Right.
So maybe instead of worrying about what they're doing, what if we're just open to acknowledging and then just kind of planting your feet and saying, this is where I'm at right now, but I don't have to stay here. I think that's very empowering as a woman. And then like the other suggestion I could make is get around other women who feel the same. Maybe it's a Facebook group of women who are looking for that encouragement. It's a Facebook group of moms who maybe are not in the season of bouncing back. Whether it's you have one child, you have two, or you just had your third, or whatever that journey is for you, put yourself in the room with others to look for that encouragement and to look for that journey, because sometimes we are our own worst enemies. Our brains start to tell itself things and program these things and starts to almost internalize them as truth. So being open to asking the questions, yes, and being open to getting into the rooms and the virtual rooms, the physical rooms of like, I don't need to bounce back right now. And not just because you just had a baby, but also because you don't need to bounce back right now. Like,
Or you don't need to bounce back, period. Maybe we can just evolve instead. Maybe evolve
maybe you were
into
never
yeah.
maybe you were never supposed to be the size of a Barbie. Like, there's nothing wrong with looking like a doll. But what if you were still a doll that is evolved now? Because that was actually the purpose behind Barbie. For anyone listening, if they didn't know that, Barbie's purpose was never to be perfect and have a perfect body. It was that she was able to evolve into different careers and different ways of being, different clothes and different things. She was never supposed to stay the same. So why don't we treat that way?
Yeah, I totally agree. And then I think the other important thing is to understand, and I think we all have a very basic understanding of this from the outside, but then once we start going in, we become consumed by social media.
Yep.
And by what we see online. So while I'm not on social media, I can sit here and talk on this podcast and preach to you like, oh, when you see what you see online is just a highlight reel, like all you see a very clean, beautiful playroom, and then in the next room it's the Monica from Friends closet full of all the junk and whatever, like I can sit here and say that to you, and I could say it to myself, but right after we're done recording and I'm doom scrolling, I'm going to see a beautiful playroom and be like, man, I wish I could make a playroom
does
like
not
that
look like that
for my baby. Exactly. So it's you have to challenge yourself every day on that way of thinking, like I have a friend who has a really, really awesome sleeper. Their kid has been sleeping through the night. Oh my goodness. For the longest time. For maybe even before they were 3 months. And my kid, no. That is not the case. And I can sit there and be like, dang, she's so lucky. Like, oh, I wish my kid would do that. But then also, on the flip side, just because that kid sleeps wonderfully and has always slept wonderfully doesn't mean that that mom or that kid is any better. It means that she has her battles elsewhere. Like maybe the kid refuses to eat. And mine just eats anything I put in front of her.
Maybe off the floor sometimes.
Maybe even then. So just because you see what you want for yourself or for your kid in another parent or child, but you don't see the whole picture.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't have it all.
Maybe the all is just what you have now. Like maybe that is your all. Because, and this I'm sure is its own episode, I guess, but I do want to make the statement that like so often we receive what we've wanted, and our generation we always shoot for more because we're ambitious, and that was just kind of what we were bred to do. So we get the baby, and then we see the mom who has a good sleeper. We see the mom whose kid is 2 and is reading, like something, I'm going to say insane because that's for me like a little out of reach because my 2-year-old is still functioning on a couple words of sentences. But in the same way, I didn't think I could have a baby. So how about that? I think it's important to just, again, remember that it is an everyday thing. You have to every day combat it. It's kind of like a, a dirty water in a cup. And every day you have to rinse the cup out. The only way to get the dirty water out is to pour a lot of clean water in. And then tomorrow morning, the cup is dirty again. And you have to do it constantly. And it's not something that you should let consume you. Just be aware of it. If you're in a place right now where maybe you have 2 kids and you don't feel like you are quote unquote where you're supposed to be, whether that's in your career, your body, which is specifically what we're talking about, or your kid isn't where you think they should quote unquote be, or maybe you have an actual like speech delay or a growth delay in your child. I always want to remind you, and I know Sarah feels the same, you're part of this village. You're not facing this by yourself. And 99% of anyone that has a slow delay or thinks that they're not doing enough or etc. is someone else's goal. Is someone else's like the grass is greener there. So
Absolutely. And I can even share a personal story about exactly that. I was not potty trained until I was 4 years old. And I potty trained.
Queen.
I potty trained at the same time as my younger brother, who was 16 months younger than me.
Wow.
He and I potty trained at the same time.
That's a nice memory.
It's it's a nice memory, but I remember my parents. I love my parents because they always remind me of this story anytime they notice that I am comparing my daughter to someone else's kid. Yeah. So when I took Ramona to the little gym for the first time, it was a nightmare. It was horrible. I took her when she was about 15 months for the first time. And she had, at this point, had very little interaction with other children, had zero interaction with other adults in a public setting that wasn't family. Because she doesn't go to daycare or anything like that. So this was my way of socializing her because that's what I was supposed to do according to everybody.
You gotta socialize your kid because if not...
Yeah, like in comparison to other children, mine was not socialized enough. Okay, so here we go. We're at the little gym. Oh my God. This girl, the entire time that we were there, was clinging on to me for dear life. She was so afraid. She was crying, screaming the entire time. And I couldn't put her down at all. And I'm just looking around at all these other kids having the time of their life, leaving their parents behind like they don't exist anymore, having like all these, like showing off all of these skills, like they're like doing these like somersaults and all these, they're hanging on bars. And meanwhile, I have this kid monkeying onto me, literally opening my skin with her nails and leaving bruises on my arms. That's how afraid and petrified she is of this really loud place. And I'm here like, oh my God, I'm so mortified. I'm embarrassed. My child is is so terribly behaved. I was apologizing to the teachers. I'm so sorry. Like, I did not expect her to react this way. And I came home and told my parents about this. And my dad was like, this was her first time doing something like this. That's a lot. That's overwhelming. That's super overwhelming. And he told me, he said, do you think those other kids were running around like doing somersaults and whatever, hanging on bars the first time they went there? I don't think so. Give her a chance. Give her a chance. You know, why you're holding her to a standard that is not fair, is what my mom said to me.
Wow.
Yeah. And instead of me being like, I left that conversation saying, switching my tune from I'm never going to take her back there again to, okay, we'll go again next week and try again. And every week we went back, she got better and better and better. And now
I'm going to ask you to repeat that. I'm going to ask you to repeat it because I don't know if it conked out or not. So repeat that. You said you left the conversation.
I left the conversation. I went into the conversation saying to my parents, I will never take her to the little gym again. And after that conversation, they convinced me, no, you have to take her again because you have to lower your expectations of her and stop comparing her to other kids because that's not good for either of you. And so I went again the next week and she did much better. Instead of, clinging on to me, she was just holding my hand. And then the next time she actually went and got a little shaker to sing the song. And then the time after that, she let go of my hand and was more curious about all of the little like cheese boards or whatever they call those, like soft mats or whatever. And then now she's one of the kids that's leaving me in the dust.
Somersaulting.
Somersaulting and hanging from bars.
Yep.
So sometimes kids potty train with their younger siblings at the same time. And it's okay. Because what happens in the first few years or for the first time usually fades into the background the more you do it. And the better you get at it.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to stop going in with these expectations that are through the roof and go in with no expectations at all.
I really like this story because our kids are a couple of months apart in age. And my personal story is that I took my child to Sarah's child's birthday party. And at that time, my child was 16 months.
Yeah.
And he clung to me. And he was very like, when someone would take the toy he was playing with. And I didn't say this to Sarah there, but I left and I was like, oh my God, he's not socialized. He's going to be the kid that fights. What am I going to do? And I remember I was texting my husband at the birthday party like, I think I'm going to leave early. He's very upset about this one toy and I don't know what to do. And I drove home and I was like.
And you did leave early.
I did. I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. What have I done?
But you did tell me at the party that you're like, this is too much. We got to go. And I'm like,
we got to go.
Fair.
And we left and I talked to my husband and my husband was like, okay, well, that was a birthday party. It was hot for him. And whatever. It progressively got better from there. So now fast forward 6 months since then, your child is 15, 16 months and you're like, oh my God. And I was like, I've been here before. It gets better. And you were like, no, you don't understand. I was like, no, yes, I do. Actually, yes, I do.
I remember texting you about this little gym thing and I was like, Pam, no. Like, I am
you were like,
mortified.
It was awful. I'm never going back there. And then I was like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that happened to you because I've been there. But you got to go back. And you were like, but I don't want to go back there. It was awful. And I was like, I know. And like, First of all, thank God we had each other, right? Thank God for that village. But also, that's exactly the point. If you're listening to this episode and maybe it's a thing like your second child is doing something your first didn't do, or you're navigating whatever differences they are to you, and you're comparing your kid to someone else's kid, or even your own kids to each other, I want to tell you you're in good company. But also, there's a high possibility that your child, this is the first time they've ever been here. You have whatever amount of time of experience in the world with other adults and other children. They don't. Everything is brand new to them. So I think, like for myself, to close off the episode, I think that it's important to compare things where necessary. Monitoring things is important. But also remember that your kid has never been here before and you've never been here before. And you have the opportunity to evolve, and they have the right to do things in their own time. So if they're potty training at 4, or they are going to the little gym for the first time at 15 months and they're kicking and screaming, or if you're a couple years postpartum and maybe you haven't settled into your body, it's okay to evolve, and it's okay to, be okay with where you are right now and move through that.
I agree with you. And something that's been helping me is when I feel myself asking the question, for at least from when I'm starting to compare my child to others, like, she should be doing XYZ.
Yeah.
I try to ask myself, after I'm having this anxiety ridden spiral, I try to ask myself, once I catch it, well, is my child loved? Is she safe? Is she healthy? Is she curious? Does she feel securely connected to me? Those things are more important than, can she hang from a bar at the little gym at 15 months old?
Yep.
And then for myself, when I find myself looking at myself in the mirror and being really disappointed, or when I've had a little bit too much dessert and I feel guilty about it, I ask myself, well, am I doing this as a habit? Is this a habit? Am I caring for myself? Am I doing things in moderation? Am I overall, adapting to a healthier lifestyle in general? Or is this something that is just a once in a blue moon and maybe you can enjoy it? Do I deserve it?
Yes. The answer is typically
Always
yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to ask myself more productive questions than questions that are, sending me into a spiral of anxiety and then leading to comparison. So that's my little strategy. It works sometimes. I just have to keep doing it.
Yeah. You just got to keep pouring the clean water instead of the dirty water.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, thanks so much for chatting today, and we will talk to you guys again next week.
Bye.